Welcome to Decoding Our Lives, a place to ask questions, gain understanding, and find the missing pieces of your life. It's time to open your mind and discover the world from a new place and a whole new perspective. Now here are your hosts, the Saman Lady Cathy Silver and the Reverend Rob Lee. Cathy, what's up? How are you today?
Hey, it's Tuesday. How you doing?
It's Tuesday. Do you do Taco Tuesday?
Actually, I did Taco Monday yesterday. So.
Didn't think about that till you said it. And now that's where we're at. And I'm thinking about what I'm going to cook for dinner. So maybe I'll do tacos. But I got a new wok for Christmas. My kids gave me a wok. And
nice.
I'm learning it. Never cooked in one. We did pad thai last night. I got to learn the wok, but that's what we're doing. So in Decoding Our Lives, I have to figure out how to use a wok. Okay.
That's easy. Easy. It's basically a Chinese frying pan.
That's it. That's it. Hey, you know what? You have arranged for a wonderful guest to come on. This is going to be exciting for me. And this is Michelle Karén. She and in her bio, I'm just going to read her bio here. French and Finnish born Michelle Karén has lived in 7 countries on 3 continents. She became an astrologer at the age of 14. That's kind of nuts. Wrote 10 books on astrology, yoga, living food nutrition. So when she sees me, she's going to completely panic. Okay. She is a highly sought after international conference speaker. She has been invited by many top radio and television shows around the world and was actually selected to be the astrologer at the 46th Academy Awards in Hollywood. Dun, 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 dun.
Literally astrologer to the stars.
There we go. She is also a shaman initiated by the, I'm going to screw this up, but I think I get it right, Caro Master Shamans in Peru, where she has been leading journeys since 2004. She founded the Lanke Mune Yache School of Shamanic Studies online in Phoenix, Arizona, and Helsinki, Finland. She lives in the US, Finland, and France. I'm already dying to meet this girl and just love the opportunities she's had through life. So, you ready to talk to her?
I am.
All right, let's get her in here. Let's bring her on. All right, let me see. And here we go. Michelle, welcome to Decoding Our Lives. What's happening?
Thank you so much, Rob and Cathy. I'm so excited to be here with you. Thank you.
Your bio is amazing, you know, so that's, I'm just so impressed. And you know what? I'm trying so hard to learn astrology.
You are?
And my wife is after me so hard because I do tarot. My other show is Tarot with an Attitude. Okay. And one of the things though I have is back in the 40s, I had a stroke. So my short-term memory and trying to memorize a whole bunch of stuff, I just have a problem with it. So, you know, I'm hoping you can give me a real quick, easy way to remember stuff because I love it. And I'm going to have some more questions for you on it. Cathy,
Okay, so let's start. There's a lot of naysayers out there who don't believe in this. They think it's woo-woo, there's no science behind it. And since we have this show called Decoding Our Lives, which is making sense out of life, maybe you can bring in some enlightenment of how does this apply to our life? How are we influenced by, you know, the magnetic signal, should we say? What can you tell us for somebody who said, I don't believe in that?
Well, you know what? I don't believe in astrology either. I'm going to shock you.
Okay.
But I keep seeing it working. So it does work. You don't need to believe. It's like looking at the sky and saying the sky is blue. You don't need to believe the sky is blue. You look at it, it is blue. Unless you have color blindness or something. But no, astrology, and that's the amazing thing is that there was one experiment that was done by Michel Gauquelin, who was a French statistician, and he was dead set, astrology is BS, it doesn't exist, it's not true, I'm going to debunk it scientifically once and for all. He was a statistician, so he started taking, astrology says, well, Athletes have Mars, the planet Mars, very prominent in their chart, and the chart is a picture of the heavens when we were born, for our first breath, for the place, the time, and the date we were born. So it's very specific to each person. It's not something general at all. And so he took all the charts of 3,000 athletes and looked at the position of Mars in their natal chart. Then astrology says actors and politicians have Jupiter prominent, which is quite interesting if you think about it.
I don't want to think about it.
And then he took another, 3,000 to 5,000, charts of famous politicians, and he kept proving astrology over and over again. So because he was dead set on disproving it, he said, okay, let's start all over. This time he took 20,000 athletes, 20,000 politicians, and he had 3 or 4 different statisticians working with him. And you know what? They proved it even more. And it was so horrible for him that sadly he committed suicide because he couldn't handle it. So
wow. So
that's
he
one.
disproved his own theory.
So he actually did prove astrology, and he was trying to scientifically disprove astrology, and he obtained the opposite results. So astrologers in the world love this guy because he gave us, the validation for what we do. And that's not the only experiment, because, for example, it is said that when the moon is full, for example, more people enter psychiatric hospitals, people go nuts. More people go nuts.
That is true. Was a cop for almost 14 years.
I can vouch for that.
Yep.
Yeah, well, Cathy, you are a moon baby. You are a Cancer, so of course, you would react to the moon very strongly. And also, a lot of surgeons will refuse systematically to operate when the moon is full because people bleed a lot more. And then there is another rule in astrology that, depending, each sign rules a specific part of the body, and it is said that we should never touch with metal the part of the body where ruled by the sign. In this, for example, let's make it clearer. Aries rules the head, so we should never operate on the head, eyes, or anything, or teeth, or anything like that when the moon is in Aries. So it's a very simple rule. And I had met this man, and he's like, oh, astrology is so BS, blah 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 blah, and he was going to get operated from the neck, a thyroid thing. And I said, well, do you want me to look at my ephemeris? And it's very quick. So I looked and I said, don't do it. And on the date he was supposed, and he's like, oh, so BS, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? Next time I heard from him, the guy was dead. He had died on the operation table. So these are very significant and real things. And people who say that, oh, that doesn't exist, well, they have never read an astrology book, and they are just proving their ignorance. That's all they're doing. Because
I agree with you. And what I want people to take away from this right now, this is not being psychic. This is not tuning in. This is learning your environment and learning what effect things have on us. I know this. I learned my first 20 years. At 20, I became a police officer, and I was about 14 years in that. One of the things I learned that during the full moon, and we all have to remember, the moon affects our gravitational, it affects the tides, it affects everything else. So a lot of times what I read was they found out that in a full moon, like you said, people's blood pressure goes up because the gravitational pull on the earth is stronger. So therefore we actually can weigh a little heavier. Different things occur. And if those things can affect our life, why can't other planets be involved as well? So I'm totally behind you on that. And I think that's a great way I'm glad for
Okay.
that example.
I got another question since you mentioned how can it affect us. So I know there's outer planets and I know there's personal planets.
Yes.
Can you explain what that is? And can you tell us which planets are which and maybe give us an example of how that affects somebody out there?
Absolutely, that's a very good question. Thank you, Kathy. So they are the inner planets are the ones that move very fast. So that's the sun. The sun and the moon are not technically planets; they're luminaries, but we consider them planets. And then we have Mercury, Venus, Mars. And that's pretty much it. These are the inner personal planets. They go fast. They don't stay long in a sign. They move very quickly. Now we have the threshold planets, Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter has to do with expansion. Saturn has to do with restriction. And then we have the outer planets, which are the generational planets. So Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto that are very slow moving planets. For example, Pluto can stay in one sign for 10 to 12 years. Neptune can stay sometimes even longer in one sign. So these are going to affect everybody because, you know, when we talk about affecting the planets, we need to think of it in both terms. Like the planets influence us, but we also influence the planets. And if you look at what was going on in recent years with Pluto, for example, that was very slow moving, it's going faster and faster through the signs. And this year we have something very unique because Jupiter has been 1 year in one sign. And this year, 2022, it's going to be in 2 signs throughout the year, which is also very new. And if you think of it, to me, as you know, planets are like beings. Like, you know, you have a friend, your friend is going to influence you by the opinions, the perception, their life story, you know, who they are, and you are going to affect your friend also because of who you are. And maybe you have a habit that they think, oh, this is so cool, I'll do that also, or I'll do it this way also, or I'll learn your language because, you know, I don't speak your language. Or so everything has a gravitational field, an energy field, and planets are no exception to that. Like animals, you know, if we have a little cat or little dog, they're going to affect us also. We're going to have somebody to talk to. We're going to have somebody to cuddle with. We're going to have, you know, this connection.
All right,
So
I've got a question for you on that.
Yes, go ahead.
And this is going to sound silly, and I'm not.
No, there's no silly question.
Everybody knows me.
No.
I'm very sarcastic, and I can be a straight up ass. But this is legitimate, okay? If all living beings are affected by horoscope signs, things like that, you know, the planets, animals are too. So therefore, when we connect with certain pets, is it because we have a connection with that pet on a planetary scale, and other pets we do not? So when I'm looking to buy a dog, should I look at when that dog was born versus just, oh, he's so cute? You know?
Absolutely. You should look at when that cat or that dog was born, but you should also look at the birth date of your house, of your home, because that also is going to affect you. And everything has a chart. So everything that was born, whether it's a cauliflower or a house was built or a project is begun or a cat or a dog or a jellyfish is born, they all have a birth chart, which is a crystallization of a time in space, and that's unique to that being. And that's why people have also different destinies, and that's why we have affinities with certain people and others not so much, you know. And like I had a Leo cat, and my cat was a Leo. I mean, he would literally, and at the time I was living in an apartment building, he would ask every day to go out, and he would put himself in the middle of the corridor, I'm not kidding, and he had a tenor voice, and he was like, meow, I am here. And you know what? He knew everybody in the building, and he was invited, and people would open their door, and he would go in, visit, go out, go to the next. And I was at that time wanting to be rather anonymous, so I was trying trying to avoid my neighbors as much as I could. And people were always laughing when they saw me. And I realized that my cat had a social life that was unbelievable. That there you go, Leo cat, you know, it was not going to be like hidden under.
For those people who don't know the characteristics of the Leo, I understand it's all about them. So you can elaborate on that if you want, but they need to be the sort of center of the show.
Well, actually, there's a bit of a misconception about Leos because people think, oh, Leos are all about, you know, flattery and wanting to be big and wanting to be admired. And well, actually, it's because they are very insecure but they still want to be the king and the queen, and they need that feedback desperately from others to make them realize they are great, they are amazing, they are beautiful, they are incredible. So it's not coming from ego-centered, you know, wanting to get approval, but it's about coming from a certain insecurity, inner insecurity.
Thank you.
But my cat was definitely a Leo.
Wow. So again, and what I do, I don't know if you know this or not, I have a master's degree in social work. I am a clinical social worker. It is one of those things I do in the evenings where I work with people, couples, things like that. And, you know, one of the things that drives me nuts about our world here in mental health is they've gotten big on this evidence-based practice. When I started bringing tarot into that, people just thought I had lost my mind because there's no evidence base to it. But what you're telling me too is if I've got a Leo, if I could do some more star research with some of my clients, I could actually see where some of their personality traits are coming from or where they're internalizing.
All right, I got a question to follow up for Michelle. So I understand it's not only our birth sign, but it's our rising sign, which I understand is how we present ourselves, and our moon, which is very influential, is about our emotions. So that there are keys that actually influences more than what they consider our natal sign. Now, maybe Michelle can expand on that.
That's a very good explanation, Cathy, because we are very complex and we could even have contradictions within ourselves. You know, we could be Cancer, and that's very homey and very wanting food and cooking and family and home and all those beautiful things, nurturing and cherishing our loved ones. And then we could have an Aries rising, and that makes us very dynamic and impulsive and moving forward, which is totally different from being a Cancer. Right. And then all the planets are also, so you are right, the ascendant is the degree of the sign that was rising above the horizon at the time and for the date and the place in terms of latitude and longitude of where we were born. So you see how detailed this is. So even if somebody, and every 4 minutes, a different degree rises on the horizon. So if somebody was born exactly at the same place, at the same time, on the same day, then they will have the same chart. And that actually has been proven. These are called astral twins. And those astral twins have absolutely parallel destinies, even though they are from completely different parents and completely different social everything, they have still a parallel destiny. They get sick at the same time, they marry a person with the same first name, they have the same kind of children, you know, the same.
I want you to think that on February 3rd at 7 o'clock in the morning, it was a Saturday, there were probably thousands of other idiots born like me. You know, so, you know, I'm sorry for all the divorce rates. I'm sorry, you know.
I wouldn't say you're an idiot. Okay, erase that already.
Well, I was going to use another word, but
that's not a good definition already. But the thing is that it would be interesting if you could find those people, and you would probably be surprised at, I mean, I'm sure you would be very surprised at how your destinies are fitting with each other. And to go back to what Cathy was saying, And for example, our moon is going to determine how we feel nurtured. You know, somebody with a moon in Sagittarius, they're going to be nurtured by somebody coming up with 2 tickets to Thailand, you know, or to Australia,
Right.
or somewhere. Somebody who has a moon in Cancer, they will be nurtured by their friend inviting them for dinner. You know, so we all have those different things that make us feel good and homey. And then Venus for a woman is how she is as a woman in love, and for a man it's a kind of woman he's attracted to. And for Mars is where, you know, how we act and how we move forward in life, and also represents sexuality. So that's the partner that would fit us, you know, sexually. And for a man, this is who he is as a man. And then Jupiter is everything having to do with abundance. How do we deal with abundance? So for example, Jupiter in Capricorn, we may feel a little stingy or a little careful with money. Jupiter in Sag will be super generous with money, you know, and trust in life that, you know, when I don't have any, it will come back somehow. So we have different attitudes, and that's why it's very important to know ourselves first. And also when we get in relationship, because, you know, it's very rare to find two charts that fit perfectly. You know, we may have great communication, sex may be great, but then, how we deal with daily life, a little different. You know, one likes to be a nomad and the other one likes to have regular meal hours and the house super clean, and, you know, so but once we understand our differences, then we can accept each other so much better. And because we know ourselves, we know this is what we are. And that's what got me into astrology, actually, because when I was 14 and growing up, you know, my parents were like, whoa, what's wrong with you? You know, and this and that and the other. And I read Linda Goodman's Sun Signs, and I'm like, hey, this is who I'm supposed to be. I'm exactly in alignment. I'm a Capricorn. I'm exactly in alignment with Capricorn. This is who I am, for real. And that made me feel so good. And then I started reading about my parents. You know, my mother was a Scorpio, my father was a Taurus, my sister was an Aries, you know, and I'm reading all that stuff and I'm like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. People who have never met Linda Goodman, whom I have never met, who has no idea who I am, can describe me better than anybody who has lived with me for 14 years. I was 14 at the time. And that's how I started astrology. I said, whoa, I need to study this thing. This is crazy.
And you know what? And that goes with my dad, God rest his soul, was a Baptist minister. And when I got into doing this and things like that, one of our last big fights were people getting married do not need to go see a preacher. They need to go see somebody that can explain their personality attributes so you know what you're getting into. And a lot of times opposites are very good together as long as you know and you're already prepared. You're going to need your time at home. I'm going to need my time out at the bowling alley. And can we mix this or whatnot? And if you know that going in, so that makes very good sense with the planetary energies, the energies that are coming from them, you know, so it lets me know I'm not as nuts as I think I am with some of this stuff with the energy.
Well, and I've also said there's a compatibility chart. So Michelle has the ability to take, as an example, your chart and Jillian's chart and see and give you an analysis of how this relationship works. She can tell that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So I will never say that two people are not matched with each other, because if you fell in love and you are living together, there's already something, right? But my job will be to say, well, maybe pay attention to that or be aware of this, you know? And that's also very valuable with when you look at the charts of children and parents, because you can have a parent that's like super disciplined and wants things a certain way, and you have like a completely dreamy Pisces child who just wants to do music and dream all day, and it doesn't mean that they won't be a super successful one day composer, but they are not going about it like a Capricorn or Scorpio parent would, you know. They are not like this. They are just like, let's float and see where it goes. So it's very valuable to understand that, because, you know, parents tend to do the best they can, but they do it according to their personality, which is probably not the personality of their children. You know, I had a Scorpio mother, I'm a Capricorn, it worked for me, you know, she was very disciplined, you have to do this and that and that. Well, that's who I was, so I was fine with that. But my sister, who was an Aries, had a very hard time with that. And she was always trying to do crazy stuff just to get out of that structure, you know. So our education worked better for me than for her. Well, eventually, you know, she found her way, but it was harder for her in many ways.
Okay, so I've got another question. We've been talking about kind of what astrology means for us personally, but we are in this huge transition, humanity is. And I am hoping you can give some insight into the listeners to what astrology tells us about 2022.
Well, I'll tell you this much. 2022 is definitely going to be a chaotic year, and we may see things we have never dreamt of ever seeing. We need to stay as put as possible during 2022, because people are going to start acting in pretty dramatic and crazy ways. And it's a year of the water tiger, which starts on the 1st of February 2022, ends on the 21st of January 2023. And already in normal times, and this is Chinese astrology, but already in normal times, it's a chaotic and extreme year. But this year it's going to be particularly intense. And especially there will be a lot of issues around water, because it's a water tiger. So be careful when, you know, if you live by water or you go on water. Not to say that you should avoid that altogether. I'm personally taking people to Egypt, and we will be on the Nile River in September, October. So not to be in fear. It's not about fear, but just be aware. And there will be a lot of talks about water, you know, what to do with water, how to clean water, how to, you know, preserve maritime life and all that. Relationships are also going to be very volatile this year, and we have to be very careful even in family circumstances. And I'm talking also about, you know, maybe family members, but also very close friends. They could put an enormous emotional pressure on us. And people could also go a little nuts if situations are not fitting their perceptions. So there will be a lot of people just blowing up because they have a certain perception of what should be or what the world should look like. And if circumstances or people are not fitting into that, they could literally, you know, go off the charts.
That's funny, because I have been challenging people since November to challenge your own perceptions about what you think, especially with all the news stuff and everything. And I've been telling everybody, 2022 is going to be an optimal year to manifest, bring things out and do things, but it depends on the crap you drag with you from 2021 into it. And this is not, if you're clinging to a lot of the conspiracy theories and things like that and driving this negativity into your life, it's going to get amped up. It's going to get amplified, and that's what you're bringing into your life. So
I agree.
I think that's where we're going. Now, that makes total sense. Now, I'm a tiger. Okay.
Ooh, good for you. That's a good year for you.
I'm a tiger. Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure, because my numerically, I'm also an 11 this year.
But you're a water tiger because you're the water bear. So you're not only a tiger, but you're a water bear too.
Wow, this is excellent.
Yeah, I am. Like I said, I'm an Aquarian, you know, so what does that mean? Is this a good year for me to play the lottery? Is this a good year? You know, I don't know, you know, but, and again, I'm coming at this not being sarcastic. It is some of those things that somebody that I want to learn astrology, but I can't hold it all. So I'm looking for that.
Okay, get my book, Rob, Astrology for Enlightenment, because when Simon and Schuster asked me to write that book, they wanted me to write an encyclopedia, but they wanted it to be for the layman, you know, like I had to even explain what an eclipse is. And I'm like, wait, everybody knows what an
Oh my
eclipse
goodness,
is. They
yeah.
said, and you know what they said to me? They said, no, they think it's a chewing gum. I'm like, what? I
Okay.
mean, I didn't even know there was an eclipse chewing gum. So anyway, that was where I was.
Okay. Was that
but
West Virginia checking in? I don't know. You know, yeah.
seriously, Rob, people think you have to memorize astrology. I disagree with that, and the way I explained astrology in my book, it's like the basic book on astrology is observe nature, because everything has a sign, everything. So I divided each sign in the colors, the flavors, the perfumes, the plants, the animals, the archetypes, the stones, everything that connects to that sign. And if you start to observe those things in nature, you are going to be understanding the sign. It's not going to be, the planet. It's not going to be something that comes out of thin air, They don't, astrologers, and I'm glad you said that, are not psychics necessarily. If you are, of course, it's extra plus, but you don't need to be psychic at all. You don't even need to have any intuition. You're just reading astrologos, the language of the stars. It is a language. And the same as we read a book, we don't need to be psychic to read a book. Well, that's what astrologers do. They read the stars, and you don't need to be psychic for that. And you don't need to memorize anything. You need to understand the underlying principles. Because imagine, how did the astrologers in Chaldea begin?